Hi, I'm Nelson, and this is the Sir Nelson IELTS and English training. In this video, we are going to concentrate on the IELTS speaking test. The IELTS, English for International Opportunity. The IELTS opens doors and creates opportunities. But you need general English to score high or to speak good English. So the IELTS goes with general English. In this particular video, we are going to focus on the IELTS speaking part 1. Specifically, we are going to look at the description questions. Description questions are common in part 1. Before we go to the main video, remember, learn English and make your dreams come true. As you learn English, remember to enjoy. Enjoy learning English. When you enjoy, when you love something, you learn it. Description questions look like this. Tell me about the house, flat you live in. Describe your hometown. Tell me about your job. Tell me about your family. Tell me about your city. In these types of questions, you're supposed to describe. This is why we call them description questions. How do you answer them? Before we look at that, gear up for the action. Real action is coming. Gear up means be prepared, get set, prepare for the lesson that is coming ahead. Description questions. Let's learn how to answer these types of questions. When responding to description questions, you need to begin with a lead-in phrase. A lead-in phrase or the beginning phrase. When you are speaking English, it's always important to begin with a lead-in or the beginning phrase. This is an example of a linking device. Remember, to score highly, a candidate must use linking devices. Remember, if you want to produce native speaker style English, you need linking devices or redundant language. We are going to look at what are lead-in phrases, what are beginning phrases. Possible lead-in phrases include the following. In another video, I called them conversation fillers. Conversation fillers, leading-in phrases, linking devices, redundant language are all important. It is a common feature of native speaker style English. These are the ones. Number 1, okay then, alright, well you know, actually, right, okay, well, first of all. These are called conversation fillers, beginning phrases, linking devices. These kinds of words are very important. When you use them, you are producing English which is near to native speaker. Native speakers always use these words quite a lot. We can add a pointing phrase. After the opening phrase or the redundant language, after the lead-in phrase, we add a pointing phrase. Pointing. To point means to show the direction where you are going. Pointing. Next, to signal to the listener that the first point is coming. When you are speaking or writing, it's important to show the readers or the listeners that I'm going to give you the first point. This is another example of linking device or redundant language. Remember, in other videos, I have told you that redundant language is very important if you are to produce native speaker style English. So these pointing phrases that I'm going to give you shortly are very important to your score. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are pointing phrases to show the listener that I'm introducing my first point. The first thing I should mention is that the point I would like to begin with is that I could start off by saying that my initial point would be that I need to start off by pointing out that, remember, I want you to notice that all these pointing phrases end with the word that. That word that is very important because it gives you a complex sentence. After the word that, you don't need a full stop, a comma. You just add any sentence there. So the sentence that you add is a complex sentence. So this phrase must end with the word that if you are to produce a complex sentence. And remember, complex sentences will help you get a higher score. 6. The main thing you need to know is that I suppose I should begin by highlighting the fact that you may or may not be aware that, in fact, I really need to kick off with a point that the most important word here is the word that. It gives you a complex sentence. So from the leading phrase, you go to the pointing phrase. The pointing phrase ends with that. It is pointing. It is showing the listener that this is my first point. Most of the above contain interchangeable words. Now you are ready to describe your first point, the activity. Example question. Tell me about the street that you live in. Think about one important point you can describe. Whenever you're describing anything, don't describe in general. Break something. Get characteristics of what you are describing. You break it. When you are describing a street, you could talk about the location of the street, the size of the street, the appearance, the building, etc. Whenever you're describing something, break it into features. These are the ones you concentrate on. The first one, location, the second one, size, and many others. Do not give the name, as this is not really describing. Nobody is interested in the name, but the language. And the name would probably be in another language, so you would not be using examples of topic-related vocabulary. Select a leading phrase or opening phrase and a pointing phrase from above. The first point needs to be developed with a complex sentence. As long as you put the word that gives you a complex sentence. Notice in the example how the candidate uses a structure with that. Those are pointing phrases. The first thing I would say is that it's absolutely enormous. It's one sentence, it's one complex sentence. Maybe even one of the biggest cities in Asia, I guess. This is a simple but effective way to join your linking phrase with a detailed sentence. The result is a complex structure. Notice how the candidate then uses another linking word, maybe even to add more details. These linking words are very important. Maybe even, in fact, actually. Those simple words can help you to add details to the sentence that you have given. Activity 2. Tell me about your studies or job. Choose a leading and pointing phrase. Introduce your first point and use a structure with that. Add a linking word to introduce a detail about your first point. Now we can look at the full structure. 1. Leading phrase. 2. First pointing phrase. 3. Point 1. 4. Linking word or phrase plus detail about point 1. 5. Second pointing phrase. Point 2. Linking word plus detail about point 2. Third pointing phrase. Point 3. Linking word, phrase plus detail about point 3. So when you are describing anything, you get about 3 characteristics, 3 features that you're going to describe. You give a point and you add some detail. Examples of second pointing phrases. After the first one, you can say, another point which I could add is that. A second feature which I should mention is that. As well as that, I could say that. On top of that, I could also add that. Also, I suppose I should say that. Remember, the word that is very important because it helps you to create a complex sentences. Complex sentences are very important if you are to produce native speaker style English. This is used when you are introducing a second point, a second feature of what you are describing. Examples of third pointing phrases. This introduces a third point about what you are describing. A city, a country. If you are describing a country, you choose 3 things. Anything. And I shouldn't forget to mention that, in addition to what I have just said, I can add that. Something else that I need to comment on is that, I guess I could also remark on the fact that, this you are introducing a third point. These linking devices are important if you are to produce native speaker style English, and it will help you get a higher band, and also you will produce longer answers. You will avoid the short answers if you use these phrases. So a complete response might look something like this. Well, first of all, the main thing you need to know is that, then you give the point. In fact, the word in fact is a linking word to introduce details about the point, about detail 1. On top of that, I can also add that, you add another point, which means is like in fact. You are adding some detail about the point you have given. Something else that I need to comment on is that, you give the point. So actually, which means, in fact, they are used to add details to the point that you have just given. Practice saying the full sample structure with your own points and details for the following questions. Use these questions to practice how to describe anything. Practice saying the full sample structure with your own points and details. 6, 7. Summary of description questions. Most candidates will probably be asked at least one description question. This question is often one of the first questions in part 1. By producing style of answer, this style of answer we have just seen, the candidate is focusing on the marking system criteria and not answering the question. We have not looked at any vocabulary for any of the individual topics or questions. This can be found in the section on topic-specific vocabulary later in this course. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.